Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. Welcome back. We took a short, intentional pause over the past month or so, and today we're stepping into a new season of the podcast, one that's more deeply aligned, more focused, and grounded in the full picture of healing. Moving forward, you can expect conversations that go beyond food to include grief, trauma, nervous system regulation, and motivational real life stories that offer a roadmap for sustainable recovery. This time away strengthened the direction of this work, and we're excited to be back and moving ahead with greater clarity and purpose. During this brief pause, I was able to complete additional training in trauma and grief informed support, which was helpful to further shape the direction of the conversations you'll be hearing here. It's deepened my focus on the nervous system and the root causes behind our relationships with food. So, that being said, I have the honor of being here with Shay today. Hi to Shay.
Hey.
She is our resident certified functional nutrition counselor and certified health and life coach with trauma informed and nervous system training, here to help us make sense of our bodies, minds, and stories while aiming to keep us grounded in real, honest, and raw ways, all the while staying totally human along the way, which is very true about her. So, today we want to talk about a topic that's been heavy on our minds, and that is verbal grounding, or in other words, say it to stay safe, using verbal grounding in recovery and grief. So, I want to start out by saying that hello to Shay too.
Hello.
Formally, hello to Shay. Glad you're here with me today. I always love being with Shay. She is a
Mm.
bright light. For those of you that know her will know that to be true. She's always positive and upbeat and cheerful. So it makes me happier just when I'm in her presence. So,
Oh.
yeah. Are you blushing?
I am, and I'm
Yes.
going to send you some love. There we go. I'm sending
Yeah,
you hearts. For those who
I
can't see
know.
it on my Zoom, there's like little hearts flying everywhere. So,
I
yay.
know. I love those hearts. So I recently came across a social media post about this thing called verbal grounding, like I had mentioned, and it really stopped me in my tracks. Not because it was new or trending, but I think it was because it describes something I think many of us already do, especially those of us who have lived with anxiety, trauma, or emotional healing, but we've never had the language for it. The idea is simple. When we are overwhelmed, we name it out loud, what is happening in real time, and it helps the brain stay calm and not afraid. And what really hit me was this idea of when we go silent, that is often when the fear creeps in. I don't know if you've kind of heard that saying, but you want to know where your enemies are. It's actually better to know where they are so you can keep an eye on what's going on. But that's been me so much recently when we'll talk about this a little bit more about my husband passing 3 months ago and me just learning to name out loud what's happening, what I'm doing, what I'm feeling, and I'll get into that a little bit more. But Shay, when you hear this, using your voice to stay regulated, what comes up for you? Let's talk about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so glad. Paige, I'm honestly so thrilled that we're talking about this because, I think our voice is one of the most powerful things. And when
Yeah.
we use our voice, well, it can be destructive and it can be powerful, it can be healing, it can be all kinds, and when we use our voice as a grounding tool, it directly regulates our nervous system. And I love everything nervous system talk. So when we're
Yes.
speaking, when we're humming, I live in a house that is full of loud. There's always some singing and all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of kind of verbal grounding, I think, that happens here. But when we're doing that, we're sighing, we're gently naming what's happening out loud. We're actually activating the vagus nerve, and that is responsible for so much that goes on under the surface in our body. And it activates the social engagement system, which are really closely linked to safety and connection. Those are vital, vital core needs in a sense. So, from a trauma informed perspective, this matters because during overwhelm or threat, our voice often goes offline. I'm sure so many of us can, experience it when suddenly we just feel this like our voice just freezes, as it were,
Yeah.
people freeze, we go quiet, we feel like a tight throat tightens, and bringing the voice back online helps us restore presence and, really importantly, agency. There's also a physiological layer, so that's slow, rhythmic vocalization. It supports calmer breathing, reduces that sympathetic stress response, and cortisol over time. And it's got huge ripple effects on our digestion, our blood sugar regulation, and inflammation.
Yeah.
So key, and importantly, it's not about talking through trauma. It can be as simple as naming what you see or saying your name, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. So the power is in the act of voicing, which helps our body remember that safety, which is really key. Yeah.
I like what you said about humming because I have really come to understand you're talking about settling the vagus nerve, and humming
Mm.
is one of the things that does that. The vibration is
Mhm.
can activate the vagus nerve, which is a way to calm our system. And yes, I agree so much about the saying it out loud. In our group at Real Food Recovery, for those of you that are familiar with our online group coaching system, we have 6 hours of group coaching a week. And one of the things after my husband passed that I knew that I wanted to ground myself each day was to get in and do act as a member and check
Yeah.
in each morning with Shay saying, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And
Mm.
did I want to really go do that? No, but it was a tool in the toolbox. And I knew because I want to live in future self that if I do that on the other side, I'm going to feel better. And there was something about
Mm.
grounding myself because the
Yeah.
brain only knows what you tell it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it seemed like to my brain that I was in charge, I was in control, I had a plan for the day, and laying it out with Shay, getting a little feedback, I think, has made all the difference in the world as
Mm.
how I've progressed through grief by using this verbal grounding
Mm.
tool, which is why when we heard about it, I'm like, that's
Mm.
actually what was
Yeah.
already happening, and it makes so much sense. And we just wanted
Yeah.
to shout it to the rooftops.
Yeah.
So
So good. Yeah.
let's keep going and let's talk about why this really is biology and willpower. And what fascinates me is that this isn't just like a coping trick.
Yeah.
It's biology. It literally is biology on a cellular level of what starts happening in the body as we're performing this verbalization act out loud. And when we're overwhelmed or emotionally flooded, the amygdala, which is the brain's fear center, takes over. It's fast and reactive, but when we put words to our experience, especially out loud, we activate that prefrontal cortex, a part of the brain that's responsible for reasoning, decision making, long term consequences. Research shows that labeling emotions can actually reduce activity in the fear center of the brain. In other words, we're naming what's happening. And at the same time, it tells the brain, I know where I am. I'm oriented. I'm not lost. Shay, have you seen that
Mm.
naming things like fear, stress, emotion changes how intense it feels in the body? Just the
Yeah.
intensity of changing
Yeah.
that to where it's more, I can deal with
Yeah.
this versus complete
Mm.
overwhelm.
Yeah. Yeah. Even as you're saying that, I'm feeling like a lot more less anxious at the thought of saying it, and
Hmm.
honestly, Paige, I see this all the time in practice, all the time. Even with group, you'll see it when folk are sharing, you can see already it changes. And the moment someone names what they're feeling, even something as simple as this is anxiety, this is overwhelm, you can often see a visible shift in their body. You'll see their shoulders drop, the breath deepens, there's this slowing down and like this just this
Yeah.
exhale.
Hmm.
And from a biological perspective, this completely makes sense because naming activates, as you've said, that prefrontal cortex, and it helps dial down amygdala activity, which reduces the intensity of the stress response. And that's key. And so, from a body-based lens, it also restores orientation and agency again. And so, what's really key is knowing that the body moves from being in the experience to witnessing. It's like it distances it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's
We're
key.
observing it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And that
Mm-hmm.
feeling doesn't necessarily disappear, but it becomes more tolerable, so more contained, less consuming. So safety is actually felt in the body, not just
Mm-hmm.
a kind of knowledge thing. It's actually felt, which is vital when it comes to grounding, as it were. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Even if it's bad, let's say
Yeah.
we're going to make this about me. Even
Let's
if
make
I'm
it
coming,
about you, my friend.
it's all about me now. This
All
is my
about you,
show.
Paige.
Even if I'm coming in to report to you, I'm feeling
Yeah.
sad, or this hasn't
Yeah.
been a good day, or I didn't sleep well, there is
Yeah.
something about even
Yeah.
being able to articulate what
Yes.
it is that
Yes.
helps organizing
Yes.
it, organize it in the brain to where I know what I'm dealing with, and that
That's it.
alone makes it less scary, right?
Massively.
I
Massively.
I I've already done some work there, obviously, if I can say what I'm feeling. And even if I'm not quite there, being in a group coaching setting, like we're talking about, having
Yes.
some of our trained coaches, you're able to work with someone that can help you also draw it out. If you're not quite there with a verbal grounding, they can move you in a direction
Yes.
to where you can get
Yes.
there on your own with a little bit of feedback. And so I was also thinking about it's one thing to be able to verbally um, articulate what you're feeling, but there's something even more powerful doing it in a group setting or with at least one other
Yes.
person that
Yes.
also helps reduce the fear and process that
That's
and
it.
makes it more manageable. Just
Yeah.
like you were saying, it
Yeah.
takes the overwhelm out of it, where if you're alone by yourself and you're silent, you might be at a 10. But if you're
Yeah.
talking about people, it kind of normalizes the
Yes.
feeling
That's
and
it. That's
takes
it.
the temperature down.
Yeah. And you know what, Paige? I'll just hop in there very quickly.
Yeah.
I call it narrative medicine, or part of it is narrative medicine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a saying that goes, in the absence of a clear narrative, people will form their own. And so when we don't have clarity, when we don't have a clear story, all stories will be made up. Like anything can
Right.
happen. So you know what you're working with, as you say. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I don't know. Have you seen this Netflix series that out is out? It's Alex somebody, and he scales without a rope
Woo.
what's the name of the mountain? It's in Yosemite, El Capitan. It's
Okay.
basically straight up.
Gosh.
And maybe he's the first guy that has done it. He also scaled 110
Hmm.
stories somewhere in Asia without a
Incredible.
rope. But they we were talking about the amygdala, the fear center, and they actually did an MRI of his brain because first of all,
Wow.
who would do that, right?
Not me.
Whose wife would let them do that? Anyway, it showed he had no activity, that his
Wow.
amygdala was
Sure.
inactive. So it's just incredible how
Story.
that those parts of the brain
Yeah. Yeah.
make an impact on
Hmm.
our perception of what's going on, how we're
Yeah.
perceiving life, the danger that we're
Yes.
in. But the
Yes.
talk therapy, the verbal grounding, helps
Yes.
activate, as we've said, the amygdala
So
or
good.
deactivate it
Yeah.
because we
Okay.
can easily overactivate that fear center when we're staying silent. And let's talk about that a little bit more about silence being a trigger for us. One of the most important parts of this whole thing for me was understanding that silence is not always calming.
Mm.
And that can be counterintuitive because sometimes when I'm really upset, I just want to stick to myself and just kind of work it out alone. And I don't feel like talking about it. So we often think that silence equals peace. But for someone with trauma, silence can actually feel unsafe. It can feel like abandonment or being left alone with something too big. And for many people, especially those of us who use food to cope, silence is when urges get actually louder, not because we're hungry, but because those feelings are so big that they feel imaginable. In
Yeah.
my house, we just had a snowstorm here
Mm.
when we're recording this. This is in winter. And I when my husband and I first got married, I mean, we had 6 kids here with us, so we were a house of 8, and now it's just a house of one. So I don't think I left the house for 4 days, and that silence was deafening. So it was a
Mm,
very new experience, easy to spin out in
yeah.
those days of it's not only silent, but you're in solitude a little bit, and you just feel it. You feel like, I mean, I can't go anywhere. The roads are impassable, and you can easily spin out in that. My word of the year is adapting,
Mm,
not
mm,
adapt because I'm not there, but I want to
yeah.
be in the process of adapting. So that was one of the things that I recognized was the
Mm,
silence
yeah.
of being alone. It puts a spotlight on the lone. So I could have easily gone into a deep dark spiral, or I started working on projects and
Yeah.
making sure I was puttering around. I got a few extra naps in, which was nice, and looked at it as an opportunity versus being in
Yeah.
prison or isolation. I was in solitary confinement.
Yeah.
So, so my question for you is, why do you think so many people confuse silence with strength
Mm,
and don't want to speak up, even when it actually increases anxiety? It's counterintuitive, but it seems
yeah.
like we lean into it when things are
Yeah.
really bad. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. So good. I really thought about this one, Paige, and I think a lot of it comes from how we've been conditioned to equate control with strength, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah,
So, from a nervous system perspective, silence can actually look calm on the outside,
right.
but internally, it can actually increase threat for someone with trauma because
Yeah.
there's no cue for connection or safety. There's no cue. Okay. And so our brain, excuse me, our brain is wired to regulate in relationship. That's why I love group community coaching. I love it
Yeah.
because we're in relationship there. And when there's silence, especially in an already stressed system, that nervous system can interpret that as abandonment rather than peace. I mean, that just even hearing that word abandonment rather than peace, that's just
Hmm.
horrible. That's yuck. And
Hmm.
and we'll know this now, just kind of in our context, that's often when urges, including those food urges, get louder.
Right.
Not because the body needs more fuel, it might do, but because the system is trying to self-soothe or resource. Because that's what it's doing, is trying to self-soothe or resource. So what we often call, and I say in air quotes, strength, is actually suppression. And
Hmm.
biologically, that suppression tends to increase the anxiety rather than resolve it. And then when we chuck in a whole load of other additional addictive substances, chemicals, then that just increases. And so in a way, that kind of silence is actually a subtle form of self-betrayal and disconnect. So
Hmm.
it's a really big impact on the kind of depth of us, as it were.
I think
Yeah.
don't you think it's so interesting how I'm just going to say it in a crude way that our body can lie to ourselves
Yeah.
in a way that we think we're trying to be safe. Our automatic nervous system is always its job is just to keep us safe. So it's
Yeah.
always scanning for safety, scanning,
Yes.
scanning, 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 scanning. And
Yeah.
somewhere in there, some wires got crossed
Hmm.
that said, "Oh, well, I'm going to keep you safe by you
Yes.
keep your mouth shut."
Yes. Yes.
and
That's it.
and think about something that's
Yeah.
festering and you
Yeah.
keep it on the inside
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
extracting it. It
Yeah.
just will get bigger and
It,
worse and worse and
that's
worse.
it.
And what a cathartic opportunity to
Good.
get it out.
That's it. And also, when it's learnt in the past, when there has been actual threat and danger, and
Yeah.
silence has been the way to protect, it then
Yes.
learns that this is how we stay safe. And that just becomes its
Yeah.
default, which isn't
Hmm.
necessarily because it will kind of put that into everything.
Yeah.
Going forward. So you've
I,
got to
I
relearn and rewire that.
I agree, and I'm actually glad you brought that up because that can happen a lot in children, right?
Yes.
where
Yes. Oh,
where
yeah.
that
Yeah.
conditioning starts from childhood that you need to be quiet in order to be safe.
Yes.
And then the
Yeah.
problem is we carry those patterns into
Yes.
adulthood and then
Yeah.
we build up resentment when we don't speak up.
Yeah,
and then your silence turns into premeditated resentments that then you
that's
have
it.
to deal with then as an adult and figure
Yeah.
out how to have relationships and speak up
Yes.
because
Yeah.
otherwise people may misperceive, oh, they're just an easy to get along with person
Yeah.
when
That's
they're
it. Yeah.
a ball of turmoil on the inside and then it comes out sideways, right?
Oh, yes.
That's
Yeah,
the problem is
absolutely.
then
Well,
it comes out in a big ball of fire in a
that's it.
sideways that nobody, even you, were expecting and like, where'd
That's
that come from?
it. Or even presents in different signs and symptoms of disease, as it were. It's going to come out some way.
Totally.
It's going to show up somehow.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're ending up with high blood pressure or
Yeah.
inflammation or
Yeah.
cancer or yeah,
Yeah.
all kinds of things. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's that silent,
Yeah.
that silence is deadly.
There we go. There we go. Right there. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let's sit with
That
that for a
that
moment.
doesn't that does not come from
Yeah,
nowhere.
that's right. Exactly.
Um, So let's talk about bringing in a little bit of personal grief to this verbal grounding. I had mentioned that my husband had passed away. It's been 13 weeks now at the time of this recording. And one of the most surprising things I've learned in my grief is how loud my thoughts can get when everything goes quiet in the house. Like I was talking about 4 days alone, you can that can be real easily spun out there. The sadness, the fear, the what ifs, they creep in fast when I'm alone in my head. And I've noticed that when I don't name what's
Yeah.
happening, my body can easily start to spiral. Silence
Yeah.
hasn't been healing for me, orientation has been
Yes.
healing for me. For example, I
Yeah.
might say out loud, I miss him. I feel sad. My chest is tight. I'm safe in this moment. I know he's safe wherever he is. So that doesn't actually take the pain away, but
Yeah.
it helps me pause before my thoughts and urges take over. And why that's important is because, again, it keeps me in that prefrontal cortex where I can have access to those rational thoughts to reframe and say what is actually happening because
Yeah.
pain shared softens. So
Yes.
even if I'm saying it out loud just to me,
Yeah.
it actually changes the chemistry inside my
Right.
body on a cellular level.
Totally.
I can easily talk myself into crazy, or
Yes.
I can talk myself into calm. And even in addition with that verbal grounding, for those of you that can see me, I'm putting my hands on my shoulders and I'm patting myself, saying, good job, Paige. You're okay. You're safe. It's all going to be okay. You're safe. He's safe. We're going to work on some projects now. Everything's okay. That, even just that, giving yourself a gentle little self hug and pat and reassurance also helps to take that verbal grounding kind of to the next level almost. So, Shay, when you hear me talk about moments like this, what do you see happening for someone when grief and quiet collide? Do you think that using words can help them feel more steady? Have you seen that in your practice?
Yeah, so good. So good. Paige, I firstly really want to acknowledge you in for the loss, but just how beautifully you have tended yourself in this
Thank you.
time by staying connected to yourself and to us. I really want to acknowledge that. That's made a big difference. It's not been easy, I know.
Can,
Oh, yeah. Y- and just how beautifully you tended to yourself in that time by staying connected to yourself and to us. That's been powerful. I know it hasn't been easy at all, you know.
Thank you. I will share a little bit more personal that, oh gosh, I got to swallow for just a minute. The night he passed was just right at midnight, and I left the room about 3 a.m. So it
Yeah,
took a while for the details and things like that to
yeah,
get finished up. We were at a rehab facility, but when I walked out, I made a commitment to myself and I said, okay, it's
yeah,
time to find out what you're made of. and be
Yes.
brave.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
need you to be brave, Paige.
Yeah.
So I think saying that to myself set the stage for, okay,
Yes.
we've got a challenge. How we're going to decide how you handle this. It's
Yeah.
up to you.
That's it.
Let's see what you're made of.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pull out every tool in the
Yeah.
book, and
That's it.
you're just going to
Yes.
show what
Yeah.
bravery looks like. And showing up and talking out loud has been one of the greatest gifts. And I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done. Oh gosh, here it comes again. To help
Yeah.
me just put one foot in front of the other and name out loud what's
Absolutely.
happening, what I'm feeling. So anyway, yeah,
Absolutely.
I hijacked your thoughts there a little bit, but
No, I'm
yeah,
glad. Hey,
tell,
we're all
tell,
about voicing right now, my friend. So you
yeah,
voice away.
this is
This
now
is
turned
real
into my
time.
therapy session.
This is real time, yes.
Yeah,
But you know what you're describing, my friend, makes so much sense from a nervous system, perspective, because when grief meets quiet, the
mhm,
brain can easily tip into threat mode because there's so much unprocessed emotion and uncertainty
right.
there. And in those moments, the body often loses orientation. And that's
Oh
when
yeah.
those sensations and those urges can escalate so quickly. And
Mhm.
using words the way you described helps anchor the system. It's about anchoring. We need to
Right,
anchor because in those
right.
places, everything is so disorienting.
Yes.
Everything. We're so untethered. It's like we're topsy-turvy is our world. And so that orienting, it activates, as you've said, it activates that prefrontal cortex, which then supports the vagal regulation and reminds of the body, and this is where it's so key, it reminds our body where it is, but more importantly, when it is, okay?
Hmm.
Because the grief doesn't disappear, but the body becomes more resourced to hold it. So the experience, which it's having, feels steady and less overwhelming. We can
Hmm.
ground ourselves, bring ourselves into the here and the now, and then still hold it, as it were. So
Yes,
yeah,
and I think that's so important to talk about timing, especially with grief, because when we're working on processing,
yeah,
one of the things, one of a, I guess, a measuring tool is if the grief feels like it was in the past or if it's happening right now. So one of the things we know how to measure if we've processed something is time wise, where does it feel? Is it current as if it's happening all over again
yeah,
right now at that same intensity
yeah,
versus this was part of our history that we have dealt with and we're trying to integrate it into our
yes,
lives and deal with the pain because the pain may always be there,
yeah,
but the goal for us is how are we going to integrate that and deal with it? And this verbal grounding is a beautiful tool
yes,
because it does tell the brain this was something that
yeah,
happened
yes,
historically, not
yes.
like we were talking about that automatic,
That one,
auto,
that's it.
our nervous
Auto-
system, autonomic nervous system, that it doesn't know if you're seeing a bear right
Yes,
now or if you're just worried about a bear because we don't want our body to continually react
yes,
at that high pitched stress,
right.
cortisol producing.
Yeah.
It does no good
Nope.
for our system, and that is when we get sick.
Yeah.
So
Yes. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up about timing. And isn't it fascinating how the body works together? I mean, the body can really be like your greatest advocate. If you work with it in the proper way, it will respond.
Yes.
Just like we talk about with food. If you're eating single ingredient food, your body and mind and emotions will all start to fall in line because we're eating
Yeah.
like our bodies were designed and engineered to
Totally.
eat. It makes
That's
perfect sense.
That's it. Absolutely. And then the
Yeah.
orchestra will play beautifully. Otherwise, it's chaos.
Yes. Yeah, that's funny. You start hearing music.
Literally.
That's really funny.
Oh, yeah.
Um, the other thing that I think is so beautiful about verbal grounding is it doesn't have, it's not complex.
Mm-mm.
It, I practice it in very simple ways. Everybody, this is not, it's just, it's literally just naming what's happening, saying things like, I'm sitting
Yes.
on the couch. I'm breathing. I feel sad, but I'm safe right now. And I want to be clear that this does not take the pain away.
Yes.
It's a tool. It
Yeah.
helps, but I'm not, I want to be, I don't want to project that I'm saying your pain will go away if you just name
Yes.
things, but it keeps the pain from turning into panic or
Yes.
depression spirals. It
Yeah.
reminds the nervous system that while my heart is broken, I'm still here. I'm still right here.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm
Yeah.
working on. I've got a job to do. He's got his job to do. Shay's got her job to do. We're
Yeah.
all doing our jobs. And it
Yeah.
just brings you right back to the present. It's a grounding
Yep.
anchor. Whenever, Shay, do you see the difference between feeling pain and becoming overwhelmed by pain? Do you want to talk about the dichotomy there?
So, so, so good. This distinction page is really important. You know,
Hmm.
feeling pain, it's a good thing because it means the nervous system is able to stay present with the experience. So if we're feeling something, there's a positive. It might not be a nice feeling,
Hmm.
but we're present with the experience, even though
Right,
it
you're
does.
alive.
Okay, yeah, you're alive, you're present. But becoming overwhelmed happens when the system tips out of regulation and then the pain
Right.
starts to feel endless or threatening. Okay. And then from a biological perspective, that verbal grounding helps again keep that prefrontal cortex and the orienting systems online, which then stops the amygdala, that part of the brain which we know is responsible for fear, threat detection, emotional memory. It stops it from taking over, as you say, the panic, fight, flight, freeze, all
Yeah.
those things.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
yes, the pain is still there. It's real, it's valid, but it's contained rather than consuming. So, I'd say that the difference is between being with the pain and being flooded by it, if that makes sense.
Yes. And you said something key right there about tipping out, the pain tipping out
Yeah,
versus just staying
yeah,
hanging with it and talking with it,
yes,
not being afraid of it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think whenever we get to that point where things spiral out or your bucket
yes,
tips over, it actually takes more work
yes,
to reel it back in versus just saying, you know what, I'm just going to feel this.
yes,
I'm going to talk to it. I'm going to
yes,
reassure it. I'm going to tell it I'm sorry. I'm
yes,
sad for you. This was
yeah,
unfair.
that's
And
it.
just bring it in, like instead of pushing it away, bring it as close to you as it can
Yes,
be. Like
yes,
you
yeah,
and the pain are one, and part of your job is to love on that pain
that's
until
right.
it feels safe,
Yes,
and then it will pull that pain out of that trauma drive. And so
absolutely.
that tipping over
Yeah,
is in that's so far not even an
yeah,
option because
yes,
it's something you're familiar with and you're comfortable with. You can talk to people
yeah,
about it. It's real and
that's it.
it just gets smaller and smaller
That's
and
it. That's
smaller
it.
and knows
That's
that it feels safe.
That's it, absolutely. And we see when it's not navigated well, it starts to spill out and can cause so much hurt and damage around
Right.
so many people because it's not navigated. That doesn't mean we can't be real, but it's what impact is that deep pain having on others, you know. Yeah.
Right. And it goes back to what we said too about keeping that pain bottled up and getting it to the point where it's tipping over. You're going to have some bad chemistry going on inside the body physically. That
Yeah.
is just not a healthy state
Yeah.
mentally, physically, spiritually.
Yes.
And then it starts impacting your
Yes.
relationships, your
That's
work
it.
life, your sleep life. I mean, everything.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, absolutely. Talking about impact, we have just got a huge thunderstorm that has shown up. I don't know if can you hear that loud rain in the background?
No,
Oh,
no, but
great.
I did see that it got darker
Yes.
in your room. That's so
Good, yes.
funny. And
Good.
the other thing before we move on, I want to tell you that once you start dealing with pain and looking at it, don't you think that it's never quite as scary as you thought it would be in your
Yes.
head
Yes.
once you start to deal with it, you're like, "Oh, okay, this is not as bad as my brain let me think that it would be. This
Yeah.
is okay." And actually, it feels
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
It feels
That's
a
it.
lot better than what I was doing before.
Exactly. Because you've named it. Because you're naming it.
Named it. And once you name it, it just gets smaller.
That's it.
So let's talk a little bit about what verbal grounding really is and what it really is not. Verbal grounding isn't just a bunch of positive affirmations or toxic positivity. That's not what we're talking about because it's not pretending that everything's okay. It's not talking yourself out of your feelings. In
Yes.
fact, it's quite the opposite. You're almost telling yourself it's okay to have these feelings. And it's simply just naming reality as it exists right now. The nervous system doesn't need reassurance, it needs orientation.
Yes.
So trauma lives in the then, like
Yes.
I was mentioning before, it's historical, but grounding brings us back to now. Processing is what happens that we're feeling it now, and it's much smaller. We acknowledge that the stuff that was painful was in the past. And that's really what, if you're trying to measure how I'm doing with processing things, that is one little trick that you can use. Shay, why do you think people feel pressure to, I'm going to do air quotes, fix emotions instead of just acknowledge them?
Yes. Yeah, gosh. How long have I got to answer, Paige?
You've got about 20 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Friend, I think a lot of this comes from discomfort, Paige. We're not
Yeah.
taught how to sit with big, strong, and uncomfortable emotions,
Right.
by and
Yeah.
large. We're
I,
just not
I don't,
taught.
yeah, I don't know about you, but my parents were not sitting around trying to uh,
Yeah,
peel back the layers that, I mean, you just did not talk about that back then. You just got to work and tried to make a living and tried to feed your family. And
it.
that
That's
was
it.
a luxury. People just weren't used to doing that.
It's just get on with it.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
it's absolutely fine. You just got to suck it up and get on with it. So
That's right.
we were only taught, well, I suppose only even showed how to manage or eliminate them. Like, it's just like bottle it in, suck it up, all that
Yep.
kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And so
And
from,
people died earlier.
well, this is it. Exactly. And as you said, like that trauma sits, it's historical.
Right.
The nervous system, because it doesn't differentiate between time, it still perceives it as it's happening. And so from a nervous system and biological standpoint, emotions aren't problems, I say in air quotes, to fix. They're actually signals moving through our body. They're kind of
Hmm.
like these messengers, they show up and we get to lean in and listen. It's about leaning in. And so culturally,
Yep.
I think we've learned that strong feelings mean that something is wrong, air quotes
Yeah.
again. So
Hmm.
we rush into calm to distract or to override. Hello, addictive substances. And they know it out there. So let's just, they sell you everything for the good life, like this happy life. So there's
Yes.
all kinds of products, processed foods, this, that, etc., all to numb, disconnect and everything. And so, the irony is that trying to, I say in air quotes, fix these emotions, it often then ends up keeping the nervous system in this perceived
Stuck.
state of threat and stress. So it's
Hmm.
this continued chronic stress state where if we just simply acknowledge what's present, we name it, then that gives the body again this orientation, bringing it into the here and now. Where am I right now? That it needs to settle and regulate on its own. And then, most importantly, it has an ownership and it can take action. That's the key. It
Hmm.
can take ownership, name it, and then take action, as it were. Vital part.
Yeah. One of the things that you said that really lit me up is when you said lean in. And
Yeah.
I've always agreed with just look at this with curiosity.
Yes.
That's another huge trick
Yeah.
in taking down the fear and the worry about it and making it smaller. I'm going to just lean in and just be curious about, I wonder what's going on here. I wonder
It,
why I'm feeling that. And
it,
there's a sense of empowerment in that
yes.
as well
Yes.
that
Yes.
it's you're taking the power
Yes.
back and removing
It,
all the scary monsters
it,
away. It's just amazing how
That's it.
that
It
can
doesn't
happen.
define, yeah. Sorry, Paige. Yeah, it
No, I'm
doesn't
done.
define you. It doesn't define you.
Right.
It's not who you
Mm-mm.
are. It's a
Yeah.
part of you. Back to it's just a messenger. But we're taught that if we don't act strong and brave and keep it all together, that's a failure on our part by and large. But it's not true.
And curiosity gives you options. Once you're
Yes.
curious, I've got
Yes.
options. I can do this with that, or I could do this
That's
with that, or I could do
it.
this with that, or I could keep it the same, or I could make a small tweak here. You learn to eat the elephant one bite at a time, and it just makes it so much more palatable. So,
That's it.
anyway, let's
Yeah.
talk about how why this matters for our audience that are recovering from the effects of ultra processed food. And it matters deeply in recovery when we're using these ultra processed foods because cravings rarely come out of nowhere. I'm going
Yes.
to say that again for the
Yes.
people in the back.
Yeah.
Cravings don't just drop out of the sky randomly, okay? They often
Mhm.
show up when emotions are unnamed, when stress is unspoken, and when feelings feel too big to manage, like we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Food becomes one of those ways that we can quiet the noise, but verbal
Yeah.
grounding gives us this other option,
Yes.
naming what's happening before we numb it. Do you think that verbal grounding could change someone's relationships with cravings over time? It's kind of a trick question, but yeah, go ahead
Yes,
and say what you
yes,
think.
yes, absolutely. Over time, definitely, I'd say verbal grounding absolutely can help shift our cravings from something that feels urgent and
Yeah,
automatic
that's
into
it.
something, that can be noticed and responded to, just like you're saying. We can distance ourselves from it. It's not who we are, it's something we get to do something about. And so I mean, everyone in group will probably smile at this if they're listening. What happens here is number one key awareness is dialed
Right.
up. Awareness.
Hmm.
And then curiosity can come in, and then we can lean into that. And biologically, when we name what's happening again, we've said this a few times, we're actually reducing that stress reactivity, bringing the prefrontal cortex back online, really key. And then this gives the nervous system another way to regulate besides food
Yeah,
because the body wants homeostasis. It wants
right.
to come back to balance, as it were, that kind of, equilibrium, as it were. And so it's
Hmm.
always trying to find a way to do that. So then what happens is that cravings stop being the enemy and then they start
Hmm.
becoming information, just data.
Yes,
Data,
yes,
all it is, a signal that needs something needs
yes.
attention, not numbing. So
Yeah.
with repetition, the body just learns it doesn't have to reach for the ultra processed foods to feel safe or whatever it is, because, well, there's just another more supportive pathway available. Yeah.
Right. It's so that's you kind of said it, but I'm going to reiterate that once that we do this and we practice it and it becomes an automatic default for us, then we've got another tool and it takes the fear away from a craving coming up because once if that would happen, we know what to do with it. Is I
That's
don't
it.
know about you, but I mean when cravings would come up for me,
Yeah.
straight to panic. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, what am I going to do? Am I going to be able to stop this? How big and scary are the monsters that are coming out of the closet? What
That's
if I get into the food? When will I stop? How will I undo it and make up? Do I have to over exercise? Can I not eat for a
danger.
week? All that
Mhm.
total
Yeah.
psychotic danger, the worst danger. But
Yes.
that what even if you're not using it at the moment, you know in your back pocket you've got this tool ready to go.
It.
That
That's it.
alone means
That's it.
that you've got this coat of armor around you,
Yes.
protecting you, that
Yes.
nothing can hurt you because you have this
Yes.
self-trust built up that I know how to deal with this when these
Yes.
situations arise.
That's it. That's it. And I think the key word is that I can do it. You're empowered. You're not disempowered.
Yeah,
You're in
yeah,
control.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it's with you wherever you go. You carry it with you at all times. It's not
Hmm.
heavy, it's not extra luggage. It's
Yeah.
just in your heart,
Yeah.
toting it around, happy
That's
as
it.
clam.
Happy
So let's
as.
talk. Yeah, let's talk about a few different practical ways, and I'll kind of spin through these, and then I'll get Shay's reactions of
Oh,
what she does and doesn't like best. And these are all optional, so you don't have to do them all. But number one is a play-by-play narration where you talk out loud what you're doing. I'm walking to the kitchen. I'm opening the fridge. My shoulders feel tight. You speak slowly and notice your breath as you narrate. The second one is sensory naming, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, where 5 things you see, four things you feel, three things you hear, two things you smell, one thing you taste. And this is something that can bring attention to the present moment or grounding yourself and pulls you out of those spiraling thoughts. Another one is just a simple safety statement
Mm,
that we've talked about a little bit, saying out loud, I'm safe right now. This is hard,
yeah,
but I can handle it. That helps you when you keep your voice calm. It helps maintain peace and very, very calming to the body.
yeah.
Uh, the next one, narrate your body. My feet are on the floor. My hands are resting in my lap. My chest
Mhm,
feels tight. I'm breathing. This connects your mind to your body in real time. The one
mhm,
that we've talked about a lot is naming your emotions honestly. I feel sad. I feel anxious. I feel tired. Naming those emotions without judgment
mhm.
reduces their intensity. The
Yeah.
next one is combining techniques during overwhelm. I see the refrigerator. I hear the clock ticking. My hands feel tense. I feel the urge to eat, but I'm safe. So you're mixing narration, sensory, and safety statements work best in those stressful moments. And one
Yeah.
more that I'll talk about is anchoring statements. This moment is uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. That's the
Yeah.
one thing because that's our number one job as humans is to make sure we're safe. That's what our body's biggest job is to do. So anything you're feeling, ending it
Mm,
with, but it's not dangerous.
yes.
I
Yes.
can notice my feelings without letting them control me. These using these when you don't have time for a full narration, just like 1 minute is enough. And
Yeah.
this tool does not take long, which is very helpful too. So any of those strategies jump out to you that you think someone could start using today, even if it's in a small way?
So good. Yeah, I love these pages. They're all so brilliant. And for the listeners, if you think back to those, you'll notice that a lot of them, to all of them, are about here and now in the present moment, and honestly, if I were to think about it, I'd back it all right up and say probably the simplest place to start is play-by-play narration, or like you
Hmm.
said, like a quick anchor statement. Where they're easy, they're discreet, they work fast because they immediately orient the nervous system to the present moment. And I think that is
Right.
orienting in all of this is key. And so, for our listeners, if you're not sure, you've heard us use this word a few times. Again, we'll just kind of reiterate it's basically noticing here and now. Okay, so it's noticing the here and the now, turning your attention to the now, like felt sense of here and now.
Yeah.
Okay, and then saying, so,
Hmm.
oh, I've got fireworks going off on
Oh,
my Zoom.
that's really funny.
Yay! There we go, the here and the now. At the moment, and then saying something like, yes, as you say, I'm standing in the kitchen, feet are on the floor, I'm breathing. All of that again brings the prefrontal cortex back online,
Yeah.
reduces that stress reactivity without needing a big pause or kind of perfect conditions, I say in air quotes.
Hmm.
So small, frequent moments of orientation are what retrain the whole system over time. And what's really key here is that consistency matters more than intensity or doing it right. I say in air
Yeah,
quotes.
I love that point.
And you can actually use it as a like preloading. You could create a habit of that every morning, just as you get out of bed, like just noticing you're in the ground, feel the ground, so you can start to train yourself to pre-orient. So
Yeah.
rather than needing to do it as a reactive, you start to train, you know.
Yes, that's literally what I feel like I was doing with you during these past few weeks is coming in the morning,
Yeah.
checking in as I'm one of the members and saying this is what my day is. Yeah, so that was one of my grounding tools, my foundational grounding tools
Yes.
to as a launching pad for my
Yes.
day. This is what I'm doing. I might
Yes.
feel this or this, but I know when I do these XYZ, I'm going to feel better. And I would name that out loud too. I will feel better when I do blah, 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 blah. And one
Yes.
other thing that I've done too is if I am really worked up, just stop and go, okay,
Yes.
I'm not bleeding from anywhere. I'm
Yes.
physically
Yes.
okay right now. Everything's fine. I can deal whatever with
Yeah.
whatever's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
And
So,
all of this helps build trust, right? Over
yes.
time, verbal grounding builds trust. Trust
Yes.
that you can be yourself. Trust that emotions don't require immediate escape. Trust that food doesn't have to carry all the emotional weight. That was a big one. That's one I want to say
Mhm.
again for the people in the back. the food's job is nutrition. When you're giving food a job greater than nutrition, you're giving it a job bigger than it was ever designed to do. So
Yes.
real food nourishes the body, but real words
So
nourish
good.
the nervous system, right? So
Beautiful.
food is for the body, words are for the nervous system, but they all work together.
Yes.
We're one holistic
Yes.
being. Shay, what do you see change for people once they realize they can sit with discomfort without
Yeah.
immediately fixing it? This is such a big, beautiful question.
Yeah, so beautiful, gosh. Yeah, what I see most, Paige, often is a shift from reaction to presence.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Reaction to presence. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a deep sense of felt, and I say the word felt safety,
Mm-hmm.
felt self-empowerment, felt self-governance, and felt self-control, taking back your power, not feeling that helplessness. And that's gold
Oh,
for a
yeah.
system that feels helpless and overwhelmed. It's gold, absolutely
Yeah.
gold, you know?
And don't you think foreboding grief is as big as living in the
Yeah,
present pain
yes,
too? Like I'm panicked about what might happen. And
yes.
that's where I think this helps so much too,
Mhm.
because it's that self-trust of I've managed everything up to right now. So
Mm-hmm.
you can, with accuracy, tell
Yes,
yourself whatever comes, I'm going to be able to deal with that too, and I'll figure it out.
yes,
So
totally, totally.
building up that what's the feedback loop
Yes.
that this is my default feedback loop that no matter what happens, I'm stronger, I'm more powerful, I'm smarter than whatever is coming my way. And so far I've dealt with everything and I'll continue to do that so you don't have to worry.
That's it. That's it. Absolutely. And biologically, when someone can sit with that discomfort, the nervous system learns that it doesn't have to spike into that fight, flight, or freeze
Yeah,
every time feelings arise.
yeah,
That's a big deal, especially when we're working and journeying with people who have had ultra processed foods as their source, I say in air
hmm,
quotes, of discomfort or whatever it is, of connection, their resource. To learn to feel again can be very scary because we're
hmm,
starting to come back online. And so over time, the stress responses become smaller and the cravings calm, digestion
yeah,
improves, energy
mhm,
stabilizes, and then emotionally, we're able to feel more capable, more resilient, and importantly, more connected to ourselves, less at the
yeah.
mercy of those impulses and cravings and more
Yes.
able to respond from choice rather
Yes.
than, yeah, yeah.
That yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah. You're that's beautifully perfect way to end this. And because I do feel like one of the biggest problems is panicking over the what ifs.
Yes.
What am I going to do if the dishwasher breaks? Who do I call? What if I'm alone for the rest of my life? What if the electricity goes out? What
Mhm.
it, I mean,
Yeah.
all of that, I could easily go into a psychotic state worrying
Yeah.
about the what ifs, but I've got to change that. I'll ask Chat GPT or I'll talk to some a valid source or I can figure it out. And that's where that verbal grounding really, really
Yeah.
helps out by keeping you in that calm state, which is that's a life we want to live, right? We don't want
Uh,
to leave in that panicked, rattled state. That's so painful.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, to sum this up a little bit, if silence has ever felt louder than words for you, you're not broken. Your
Yeah.
nervous system learned that safety comes from connection. And
Yes.
sometimes that connection begins with your voice saying, "This is what's happening, and I'm still here." Shay,
Mm.
if someone listening wants to try verbal grounding today, what's one small moment or one small thing? Where would you want them to start? What would be a
Yeah.
place that they could
Yeah.
easily start?
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. Again, I'd suggest just starting with something really simple and immediate, like notice your body, name it out loud. For example, my feet are on the floor, my hands are resting in my lap. I'm breathing, even putting your
Mhm.
hand over your heart and feeling your heartbeat. is really, really key. 30 to 60 seconds of just doing this in a quiet moment, again, will really help orient your nervous system, bring back, your prefrontal cortex back online, and just, again, most importantly, reminding your body it is safe. Whatever threat or danger,
Mhm.
actual or perceived, obviously, if it's actual, that's a different story, but, you know,
Run. You do
then
need to
yes,
run, okay? You don't need
phone
to
a
talk to your
friend.
emotions, just run.
Just run. Panic, run. you know, but jokes aside, so it's got to have that sense of safety. And so bring it back
Hmm.
into the here and the now. This is where we are. And again, the key is consistency, not intensity or perfection.
Yeah.
Paige,
Hmm.
I've learned over years that small, repeated moments build self-trust and a sense of felt safety in our own connection. And
Yes.
that is key when we've
Oh,
got self-trust and that self-sense of safety. Hey, we can take on the world then, as it
yeah.
were.
Oh, that's beautiful. And to end on nervous system regulation, I think this is just a beautiful way for nervous system regulation because we do know when you're activated, you're hyper aroused, you do need to start by calming yourself down. And oftentimes that's just with either
Yeah,
breathing or grounding yourself or connection to others. But I think if you can do it in tandem, with the verbalization, I think that makes it exponentially more
yes,
powerful. So
yes,
that's why I love this tool so much, is because even just the verbalization is
yeah,
a method that can start to calm your body
yes,
down
yeah,
as you're kind of doing some deep breathing work, as you're doing the verbal grounding as well. All of that just works beautifully in tandem.
yeah, so good.
Great. Oh gosh, I love this conversation so much. Anything you want to share before we take off?
Yeah, just again to say, I always say all healing and transformation happens in community, and that's a really beautiful place to start. If you're someone that is feeling all kinds of like overwhelm, start by
Yeah.
connecting with someone, connect with a community. We've got a great community here.
Oh gosh.
Where you
Yeah.
can just come and be you,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm.
So that's just my closing thoughts, my
Yeah.
friend.
And if you want to find out more about us, you can find us at realfoodrecovery4u.com. That's the number four, the letter U. And Shay also does private coaching that you can sign up on the website for that as well. And if you are one of our community members, she runs the morning hours, so you will have direct access to her there. As you can tell, she's very talented with what she does. And if you want to find our book, Real Food Recovery, If Food Isn't the Answer, What's the Question? You can find that on Amazon today. Otherwise, we will see you next time, guys. Thanks so much. We're glad to be back. Bye bye.